Hey everybody, this is James Syrow. Thank you for watching Right Reason at the intersection of ethics and pop culture. And watch me as I mumble through episode number 5. Fun fact about number 5 is there are 5 platonic solids. This is a super trivia fact, but Plato theorized that there are 5 shapes of which the whole universe is comprised. And if you look on Wikipedia, you'll find out what those are. But that's been around for 2,500 years, and there are 5 of them. Look it up. Christian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
This is our first guest ever. Christian is a local artist here in Philadelphia. And why don't you tell the audience more about what you're all about?
So I'm an artist, a painter from Philadelphia. I work a full-time job. I'm not in college. I'm only 19 years old. I've been painting for about 4 years now. I do it to give myself a better life and because the world's too gray and you really need to bring some color to the world or else it's just dull. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Christian in many ways represents the future of how things are going. I think especially with you not being in school, I want to talk a little bit about that. Like when your parents and my parents were growing up, and when I was growing up, school was absolutely the thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, you're basically done. And now, especially more and more into the future, school is optional and life becomes the school. So tell us about like the experience of learning and going through life, but not having a professor or a class to go to every day. And how old are you, by the way?
19.
Mm-hmm.
So in high school, I did a graphic design class as like my school class. And I learned how to make websites and graphically design things. It was more like an art school in high school. It was a technical school. But as I got out of high school, so I've lived on my own since high school. Like, I pay all my own bills and everything. And I really just, like, I see a bunch of people go to college, and they get out of college, they're not sure if it's what they want to do, and they're stuck in all this student debt, and they're miserable,
and learning nonsense, not even practical things.
Yeah.
But so if you want to learn something, where do you go? If you wanted to learn website stuff now, what would you do?
Art school. Art has always been something I've done for myself and to get me through my problems. Like living on my own, I've had a lot of hard times. Like it's not always easy, and it was just kind of something to get me through my day. Yeah.
But I mean, like for me, we have people coming through. They're 19, 20, right? And they don't necessarily have the skills they need. In fact, it's almost a prerequisite to not have the skills because people that already have them kind of are broken in other ways.
Yeah.
They've gone through the machine and the machine broke them. So they bring the skills, but they bring a broken person.
Gotcha.
So it's almost like a desired skill or attribute not to have the knowledge.
Yeah.
And then maybe that means you haven't gone through the machine that breaks you.
Yeah.
Because the skills are easy to get, right? Like YouTube and like a 1,000 online learning, Khan Academy plus 5 more.
Yeah.
It takes a month or 6 months, and suddenly you have website knowledge that would take you 4 years in college.
Yeah.
But you're not in debt, So it's just so easy to learn skills, but I think it's much more difficult to learn character. But at least if you're going through life, you have a chance to learn that. Whereas if you go to school, it depends on where you go to school. Schools are kind of stacked against character, and many people come out of school that I've seen nowadays that are kind of they might have the knowledge, but they're no longer like a person that they were when they came into it. It's kind of a weird moment right now.
They get turned into a robot.
Yeah, at best. Yeah. So like I'm looking at you and you're like, I've been through stuff and it's not always been easy, but I think you're in the right place, in the right time. So it's only going to get better from here.
Thanks.
Right. So let's go into the questions.
Use your own words states. I want success similar to that of Steve Jobs. What should I do? Any useful tips that one can use to become successful?
I'll throw that one to you first before I get an answer.
Okay. Well, so I read this thing how Steve Jobs would work. He'd work like 16 hours a day in his garage on these computers, and the normal work day for people is 8 hours. And if you're only working 8 hours a day, you're gonna stay where you are. You're not pushing yourself to be better or be the best person you can be, or like you need to put in every effort you got. I go to work for 8 hours a day. I get up at 5 a.m. every day, and I'm home by, it's an hour commute, so I'm home by like 4:30, and then I'll shower, eat, and then by like 7 o'clock, I'm painting until 12 at night, sometimes 2 in the morning, and then I get up at 5 a.m. again.
Wow.
And just keep doing it.
That's awesome. That's yeah. I mean, hard work is the number one prerequisite. It's the number one, like guaranteed move for success. Most people discover that when they're like 25 and 30, and again, like having Christian like have that at 19 is just like a superpower, because like nobody works that hard at 19.
Yeah.
Nobody that I know, except for people here, of course, that are on this team. But like out in the outer world, nobody really works that hard at 19. I certainly didn't at 19.
None of my friends do.
And that's what's gonna, that basically means you're gonna be a success.
Thank you.
You know, it's guaranteed. It's just a matter of time. So on the Steve Jobs, right? I do think work is important. The other gift he brought to the table is he thought outside of the box in a big way. Like he wasn't interested in following a template or following a preset path in life and in his creative thoughts, in his design, in his approach. So if you like, one of the things we do here is, especially if you're a designer, so we have a classical design course almost. And for the first half of it, you're reading like ancient authors and ancient books. But for the second half, you're basically watching, and this is like such a softball question because Steve Jobs is like my one of my top 1 or 2 people in the world to like model my whole life after, especially the design and the business aspects of it. So I've made it my mission to watch almost, or literally every keynote he's ever made from like 1980s, like until 2012 and when he died. So I know a lot about his life and about his facts as a way to guide my life, right? And especially if you go back to the 80s when he was just like a 19-year-old, 24-year-old, one of the best ways that he differentiated himself from the herd was by not trying to say, well, how do people around me think? And let me just do that more.
Yeah.
Right? That was like the number one move he didn't do. And that's the number one thing people, when they don't know how to live, do is just copy people around them. But that guarantees you will never be a breakout. Because if you're copying other people, especially an entire like gang of other people, you'll just be an average of them. Whereas if you want to be an average of like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and like, you know, Gandhi or something like that, and you have those people that is your gang, right? And you're like listening to Gandhi in the morning and Steve Jobs in the afternoon, right? And they don't even have to be alive. Like I would guarantee, you know, the Stoic channels on like Instagram and all they do is just quote people that are thousands of years old, right? Yeah. But their thoughts are so profound and so powerful and they're so timeless. and that if you surround yourself with those people and you're just the average of those, that'll be far greater than any human group you could have assembled yourself. So I think that's what he did. He lived in a community of people, most of which were dead. Right? He was surrounding himself with thoughts that are timeless, people that are timeless, and he made himself an average of them, and therefore he stood outside of people around him so much, and he wasn't interested in fitting in or being like one of the group. That's why he was always so different. And I think being different is a way to see choices that other people don't, and make decisions other people can't. Actually, my favorite proverb is, if you do today things that other people won't, you can do tomorrow things that other people can't.
Like it.
You know, so I think he lived by that, and I'm trying to live by that, and anybody that does has, I think, a leg up in success.
Another user on Quora asks, what movie could have been over in 10 minutes if the main character wasn't so
What, like, the movie was as long as it was because the main character was an idiot, basically. Let me think about that. I mean, every movie with like a villain as like if you've read Shakespeare, have you read Shakespeare?
No, yeah.
Like a little bit.
Yeah.
So in the play called Othello, have you guys read Othello? A little bit. So like there's a main character, right, Othello, and he has this best friend Iago, who's like his best friend / the villain of the whole book.
Yeah.
And like in the whole play, he just backstabs and like schemes for how to undermine and destroy his best friend because he hates him, he's jealous, and all this and that. And like the whole show is like a horror movie of things getting worse and worse for Othello, and he can't explain why, because like people are beginning to hate him, like things begin to fall apart, but he still has his best friend to back him up.
Yeah.
And like the whole show's about him just getting deeper and worse, and Iago basically wins in the end. That's the play. I mean, a play like that or a movie like that with that thesis would end in 2 seconds if Othello just like understood that you got to know who your friends are and not always trust in appearances, and not be deceived too much by external aspects, and sort of think about who the real person is.
Yeah.
And not be too swayed by emotions. And that play would be very short if he did that. What do you think? What sort of stories come to mind for you?
It's got to be a movie or a story.
I think the movies are hard to find that have that.
Yeah.
So any story, I guess. Or even music. Or like, I think real life is also interesting. Like we see those stories with like the Iagos in real life a lot. Like I don't know, like Beyonce, Beyonce getting cheated on.
No.
Like she should have known that.
Yeah.
And she should have not. I don't know. I don't think she should have ever gotten married in that way.
Yeah.
She should have found somebody that she loved, and I don't know. That was easy to see that was going to be a crash and burn to me. I saw it from the beginning.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't watch a whole lot of TV or movies. I think it's unproductive. I don't really have time for it. Like, I'm always trying to do something to better myself, and TV just kind of. I listen to music a lot. Listen to music all day, but I don't watch.
What do you listen to?
J. Cole's probably my favorite. I listen to a whole variety between. I don't like to stick to what everybody likes. Like I like a whole variety. Like I like some alternative, some rock, rap, like EDM, everything.
Nice. Yeah. No, I don't watch movies.
You can't just be thinking one way.
Yeah, exactly. No, I haven't watched the movie in forever myself as well. When we have a question on movies, I always go back to like when I was like in my 20s.
Yeah.
So that was the last time I watched movies. So I hear you. I understand. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
That's good.
A user on Quora asks, why is modern art so ugly?
I'll let you have that one since you deal with
Um,
art.
I like some of the modern art, but there's a lot of artists that they're not trying to put out a message. They're just trying to paint a picture. They're not trying to send a message. Like, some of my favorite modern artists are Basquiat. He was a New York artist, African American, and his paintings are very. You look at them and you don't quite understand what he's trying to convey until you stare at it for like 20 minutes, and you can really start to see like what the message he's trying to send out. Yeah.
So books have been written on art and its history and modern art especially, and I deal with this a lot, almost every day. Many people have like a visceral reaction to modern art. Some people are very much pro, some people are like not so much pro. And the way that it's a very, very difficult question of like, because modern art is all there is to art. Art is modern art today. I mean, sort of traditional classical art is basically gone by and large. I mean, there's a few places here and there. So it's like critiquing an entire, a consensus of everybody is kind of a big move. So, what I would say for what issues you might find in modern art, like from an objective perspective, and not just saying I just dislike it, or somebody else dislikes it, whatever. The main contrast between modern art and classical art is modern art is obsessed with your reaction to it. It's trying to elicit a reaction. It's trying to cause you to feel something or think something. And if that's the guiding principle of it, you also can't be like somebody else. Like if somebody else has painted a piece of art that's causing a certain reaction, you can't just do something like that because you're causing the same reaction that they've already caused. You're kind of like a weaker version of them. The only way to cause your own reaction of the same magnitude is to have something different that hopefully is a success by that standard.
Like Steve Jobs.
Right. So that's why art keeps changing, and by art I mean modern art. And if you look at its trajectory, it's becoming more and more less and less related to sort of human shapes and objects, and more kind of just more abstract shapes, because that's the only place to go to, because sort of like the world around us has kind of a standard look, and there's only so much you can change in that before you've tried up all the different shapes. But in the abstract world, there's an unlimited amount of shapes, and if you're trying to be different and cause a reaction, you'll go more and more abstract. So the course of the 20th century is you begin with sort of human shapes, classically speaking, but then they become more fuzzy and more kind of like angular, and then to now where it's all angular. There's almost no human being. Or if you look at Jackson Pollock, it's not even shapes, it's just splatter.
Yeah.
Right? And that's contrasted with the classical understanding of art, which is so buried in like books and like scholarly stuff that like 4 people in the world know about, that it's almost impossible to find somebody to tell you what's the core ideal of classical art. And I'm by no means an arts expert, but this is what we teach here. The value that classical art brings to the table that's been missed and lost by some of the modern perspectives is it's not trying to elicit a reaction or cause you to do something, because it's not interested in you, the consumer. That's the biggest difference between modern and classical art. Classical art is interested in perfection, right? The ideals of things. And if it's interested in you as the consumer at all, it's interested in pulling you with it to that ideal, to those ideals. So like ideal people, ideal examples of courage or humility or love. Like, what does an ideal face look like? What does an ideal shape that expresses love or family? What does an ideal family look like? An ideal like landscape, an ideal lake, right? And because people have different sort of thoughts on that, you have different paintings of all different sorts and types, but they all have the unifying theme. And that focus on the ideal has been like the biggest missing piece that I've seen in modern culture as a whole. That's why the show, intro, I say it's an intersection of pop culture and ethics. Like, you need something from the outside to make pop culture richer, because by itself it's kind of lost its own energy to create. It needs an external force, and what I think the missing force that's needed more and more is a return back to what are ideals that we should be striving for. Me as a person, me as a man, right? As a father, as a business leader. I'm 37. What does that mean? What should I be doing that's best right now? Should I be running off to ski and jump off cliffs, or should I be spending time with my family, or should I? So there's ways to pursue the best version of yourself, and no one's really asking what those are. People are just like, I'll just do me and whatever I want, which is like the modern obsession with the me. What feels good to me is what the best is, and I'm not interested in what feels good for me. I think classical art pulls you away from this obsession with yourself and makes you focused on, okay, you feel X, but what's the best? Whether or not it feels good in the moment to do that. And that's why, like, when we go back to older arts, older movies, older music, it was a little bit more like classical music. People will think it's boring and it doesn't have the oomph, or whatever. But no one's gonna. No one could ever think Mozart will make you into a thief or something like that. Yeah. Right? Like it does affect the moral choices you make in life. Music affects how we live, right? Yeah. Definitely. Whereas like modern music can make you feel like, hey, like, let me go rob, or steal or punch somebody or cut somebody. So that sort of effect and impact was missing in a lot of the classical culture, because they weren't interested in just you doing what you want, because they were afraid of people doing what they want. People wanting things is dangerous and could be very bad for it. Yeah. Because we have a dark side to us, and just letting that be unleashed is very dangerous. So they weren't interested in unleashing the dark side in you. They wanted to contain it almost and guide you towards the better. Yeah. And art expressed that intention, as well as music and other things as well. So modern art, I think, lost that understanding. It just kind of unleashes whatever you want, even if it's not the best, as long as it's authentic. And that's that's the debate between authentic and between the ideal, because ideal could always it could be works could resemble each other when they're all focused on the ideal. That's why, like, in a museum of classical paintings kind of like look similar a little bit, and they're not as different from each other as like the modern wing. Yeah. Right? So then it's a debate of like, do you want everything to be different all the time, or are you okay with things being kind of similar as long as they're idealistic? So that's the debate, but that's why I would think modern art is not always what people find the best. or the most appealing is because it has no interest in ideal, and it's all interested in your reaction, even if it's not the best. It's like a horror movie, right? A horror movie doesn't have anything ideal in it, but it's interested in causing you to have a reaction, even if it's vomit. And that's what a lot of modern art is, I think. That's just my 2 cents. My 2 cents times a half an hour.
I could also disagree with that a little bit. I think art is meant to take you out of your world. Like I said before, the world's very like gray, and like a painting is supposed to take you out of your world and make you think. Not really give you a reaction all the time, but just make you think about something other than your own life.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, let me ask you this. So you're 19, you're working in art. What's it like in terms of like, what is it like to be an artist? Do you get respect? Or is it like, oh, you're just an artiste? What's that like?
It's people, well, some people definitely like give me credit for not giving up, because it's really easy to give up, because you're not always going to make money at first, and like you really just got to keep doing it, and eventually you'll get there if you work at it long enough. I've probably made about 3 or 4 grand doing commission paintings since I was 17.
That's amazing.
Thank you. But it's really just something I love to do for myself. Like if you're doing, you have to like what you're doing. Like people who sing, you have to like to sing. You can't just, nobody can just get up on a microphone and start dropping lyrics and expect to get famous. And it's the people who actually love doing it, who spend their time doing it, that make it.
Yeah. War is not about who's right. War is about who's left.
Never heard that.
Right? Isn't that true though?
Yeah.
Like people go to war and like, I'm right. And like, no, I'm right. But it doesn't matter almost. It's the only one that's left that is the one that wins, not the one that's rightest.
Yeah.
You know?
Makes sense.
You know, I believe in that. I believe in that so much. How do people find you online?
Instagram. I also have a website. Like I said, I went to school for graphic design and website building. Although I don't put too much on my website, but mostly it's just word of mouth.
What's the website?
Christian Welgs Acrylics.com. There's not too much on there at all.
What's your IG handle?
At CWELGS, Welgs.
Yeah, there's a ton of artwork there. You can see a lot of his work.
I still have a bunch that I have not put up, because like sometimes I get worried, like, are people gonna like this? How are people gonna take this? And
have you done any of those like the sped up painting videos where you have a blank canvas?
I want to learn how to do that.
That's like an amazing way to
cool.
showcase your work.
But like I also take breaks. Like I like to have fun as I'm painting, and it's not always.
So you don't sit down and just paint the whole thing in 4 hours.
No.
It might take you 4 months sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, normally, like I'll do as much as I can before I pass out. Like I'm a type of person who likes to finish things. I don't like giving up or like.
It's almost like painting is a form of therapy.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Definitely. Actually, speaking of that, this one, instead of, this painting's called Facing the Bottle, and it deals with alcoholism, and instead of, like I said, living on your own, it gets hard sometimes, and instead of, like, I knew it's like watching TV or watching a movie. I knew if I was just gonna sit down and drink, I wouldn't be getting anything done. instead, and I try to. The best art always comes in times of hardship, and like if you listen to music, what they're talking about, and like they're going through hardships, and they take those, instead of using drugs or alcohol, they take those feelings out in their music or in their art, and that's when you're really putting yourself into a work, and it turns out to be the best work.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tune in, subscribe, follow him. He's got like 10x more followers than we do. Yeah, get connected with Christian and follow his work. All right, we're setting off. That's it for episode 5 of me mumbling through Right Reason. I think we've covered our themes of ethics and pop culture this episode. Here's to 500 more episodes of Right Reason. See ya.